welcome to the Influential Nonprofit. As always, I'm your host. I'm Mary Ann Dersh, and today we are talking about all things data with my new friend Chery Yang. Hi, Chery. Welcome.
Thank you.
All
Thanks
right,
for
so
having me.
I am not. There's mindset and strategy, right? There's intuition and data, and they all work together. I'm more on the mindset, intuitive side, so I love to talk to people who are on the data driven process side because it truly is right. We all work together. So I'm excited to talk to you. We're going to talk about streamlining operations and how you can use your data to really make better decisions for your organization. So that's exciting. So before we start, I always ask the first question. Tell me something you're proud of that you don't get to brag about a lot.
Ooh,
This is your way of
something like that.
introducing yourself to.
Yeah, that's great. Something that I'm proud of is just being able to take like bad situations and be resilient and come out of those. And that's actually part of the founding story for Clary Base. It was at the start of COVID. I had just moved home from a different city. And I thought, okay, well, I will just find a job and do my Airtable freelance work on the side. I found a job, and in the first few weeks of COVID in March 2020, that job said, nope, you know what? The markets are shaken up because of this global pandemic. We are going to rescind your offer. So I didn't
Whoa.
have a job that was going to start. And
Whoa.
it's such a pivotal moment in this journey of entrepreneurship because in that time, I had to decide, well, do I want to keep looking for jobs in a bad economic market in Vancouver, which is where I'm located? There's not a big like financial center or a big city, big like industry here. So I ended up saying, you know what? I don't have anything to lose right now. Let's just get started and try this business out. And that was 6 years ago.
Wow. So there you go. Happy accident that you didn't get that offer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the resilience that that's the piece that I feel proud of.
That's awesome. And okay, so your company is called Clarabase and you use an Airtable. And so explain what Airtable is. And then I want you to explain that is because you mentioned it. But and then we're going to talk more really about um, data systems in general. But like specifically, this is the system that you use.
Yeah, absolutely. You can think of Airtable like spreadsheets on steroids or smarter spreadsheets, but essentially the way I like to think about databases and systems and spreadsheets in the evolution of the business is that's like 20 years ago when, let's say, an organization started, pen and paper was totally fine when you were a one-person organization, whether it's a business or a nonprofit. And then you start in spreadsheets and email and you adopt all these different tools. And when you're a really large organization like a Gates Foundation or an Amazon or something like that, you can't run Amazon orders on spreadsheets. It just wouldn't scale. So there's a natural evolution of an organization's growth, as well as the systems and tools and just resources that they have. So Airtable really comes in at a point where people are really struggling with all of their spreadsheets and their data is in too many places. And that's when you start implementing a database to store and centralize all of that information. And Airtable is one database out of many different options, but I like it personally because it's really flexible, it's customizable, and you don't have to have a vendor on board with you for the entire duration that you use it. A lot of times we're just setting things up and then handing it over to the client to do 90% of the maintenance themselves. And lots of people even use Airtable on their own. They just get started for free because it's such an accessible tool that has a way of looking similar to spreadsheets, but it's way more powerful. And that's the way that I like to explain it.
Okay, that is a very good explanation. And also understanding the difference between something like Airtable, which is like which is not like proprietary, right? Like anybody can access
Yes.
it and use it.
Yeah.
So we like when I was doing web stuff, like that would be an open source, right? Everybody's using it. You don't have to pay to use it. So anybody could use this system if they felt.
Yeah, there is definitely a free version of Airtable. It's a little bit like Gmail. You can use Gmail for free,
Yeah.
but when you're an organization that needs some more security settings and needs some more team
Yeah.
organization structure, then you start paying for
Okay. Awesome.
Google.
All right. So let's talk about um, what are some of the. So I'd like to start with this. So what are some of the biggest things people are not doing, or I don't like mistakes. It's not mistakes, but maybe they could be doing better, because I just think everyone's doing the best with what they have, what
Yes.
they know. So what do you see, what are some things you commonly run into that people really could be doing better?
Yeah, Marianne, this comes back to the previous conversation that we had on my podcast is really when people can take the time to really evaluate their strategy, come up, take that breath of air and see the forest instead of just being in the trees and being in the weeds, doing the day-to-day work. And whether it's strategy, whether it's communications, whether it's systems, it's all the same. People are so busy doing the day to day that you really need that time to come up for air and to think about, okay, where can things be more efficient? Because that's so different from doing the program management or doing the case workload that a person has time for. That's like usually uh, let's say, the more urgent things,
Right,
whereas
right.
systems are important and they can help you save time in the long term and help you scale the organization in the long term, but we often don't make the time to really improve those areas or define a communication strategy.
Yeah, and it could be costly. It could be maybe a shortcut in the long term, but or in the short term, but definitely not in the long term.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Hmm.
what I found is, from my own experience, as someone that is, you know, a more relationally oriented person, is I was losing people, right? Like I was forgetting people, because I didn't have a way to just hold and care for them. So,
Right.
so even people who are driven, more relationally driven, like databases and these systems are important because it frees us up to be in that relational zone of genius, right? Because we have what we need to be able to connect with people and to remember what they said, and all of those things that make relationship building so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have lots of clients who are in relational roles because if you think about every case managers who's working with their clients in the field or in their organization at like in their building and they see people every single day, that is all built on relationships, whether they're helping a family uh, with housing, whether they're helping a victim of human trafficking with their legal work, all of that is built on relationships because that's trust and that's re-engagement and that makes people comfortable to reach out again when they need the help. And where systems really come in is it helps to operationalize that relationship building and that nurturing of those relationships.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to, like, the right system isn't actually always built by the person who is technical. I mean, certainly, like my team and I, we are technical and we play a role in all of this, but that relational aspect and the person who really understands the program and the operations of that program is so important in building the system because we've all heard of organizations that will adopt a really large system and it fails because the shoe just wasn't the right size for the organization at that point in
Yes.
time.
Yes.
And the really key thing is to like listen to everyone who's actually in the work, doing the work, needs to enter data into the system so that we can get something that people find easy to use and they will use it because it won't create too much friction. And I'll give you the example of, for example, one of our clients who was a and who still is a anti-human trafficking organization. They help represent victims who have been trafficked in the past. When we started working together, this organization was three people who had a really long wait list. They were government funded, they were funded by lots of different grants, and grant reporting was always such a headache because everything was in spreadsheets all the intakes, all of their demographics information, all of the case outcomes were all in different places. So the first step was to centralize all of that. And that happened inside of Airtable. So then they could operationalize their work day to day. Every conversation they had, every meeting they had, every intake they had, every person on the wait list was all added into Airtable. So now they had this central source of truth instead of tapping people on the shoulder. And over time, this organization grew to 25 legal representatives, like in the last 5 years, they grew to 25 people because they had everything centralized. Whenever they applied for the next grant, they could say, this is exactly the work that we did, how this money went to contribute to the cause that we support. And there are X number of people on the wait list, and our wait list keeps on growing. So giving us more money and giving us more funding would actually help to reduce this problem that the government is trying to solve.
Right, right.
And that like centralization is how a system really helped them to grow.
Yes. And everything in one place, easy to access, right? I don't have to go back and try to find it or try to think or and I've seen a lot of organizations that I work with that the decentralization causes a lot of siloed operations
Yes.
and a lot of duplication of efforts,
Right.
and that can really and it's draining. It's just no fun to do something twice.
Yeah,
Why would you want to do that? You didn't even want to do it
exactly.
once, and I have to do it twice. So, what do you feel like? What trends are you seeing? Like, what are the new ways, or what's the future of all of this?
Yeah. I I love asking that future question. I mean, we can talk about some of the trends and how people are adopting AI. I'll give some examples, but the key thing in automation that hasn't changed in the last while is just what sorts of things we want to automate. It's the repetitive work, it's the manual work, it's the time-consuming work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to recognize like we don't need to just chase the next thing that is really shiny and bright and people are talking about it. It really comes back down to what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Are you trying to save time? Are you trying to just reduce the manual work, reduce the copy and pasting, like you said? And then in terms of the tools, I'll give you an example. One of our clients, they work in a politically somewhat sensitive space. So they have a mailing list that people can sign up for. But they do periodically get spammers or hecklers or people who just don't have like good intent when they sign up for their mailing list. So they actually have to vet every single person on that mailing list
Oh
when
my
people sign up.
goodness. Okay.
So we obviously don't want bad actors in our mailer that gets updates on the organization and maybe they'll misuse that information. And we just don't want them to be involved. So in that situation, whenever someone new signs up for the mailing list, we have an AI field or an AI agent inside of Airtable go and research that person. And our prompt is literally to say, okay, go do the research and flag anything that you think is misaligned with our organization.
Huh.
So if that's the case, then when the real human comes to review, they don't have to type in the person's name and email and organization and phone number into Google to figure out who that person is. Like the AI has already done that initial step, maybe put in their LinkedIn profile, maybe pulled some relevant information to help that person decide. So now that decision can be made in a span of 30 seconds instead of 5 to 10 minutes just copy and pasting and looking to try to find is this even the right person?
Yeah.
So that's where we're using automation to, you know, it's a repetitive task, it's manual because of that copy and pasting and research, and it's time consuming. So we're taking that, you know, maybe 10 minute, 5, 10 minute per person or request exercise down to 30 seconds. And that's where I think automation makes a really meaningful change in someone else's day. Like the blanket statement isn't to like just make a ChatGPT account and throw everything into ChatGPT. It's like we have to tie it back to a specific problem.
Right. And that's a really great example because that's something that's really necessary. That is a step we can't jump over, right? So somebody's going to have to spend the 5 to 10 minutes
Yes.
to do that, and now they can spend 30 seconds, and because maybe it's and then maybe it's move oh well, now they're backing up. Now there's a bottleneck in the system because now there's 50 emails I have to approve, and so it helps you stay on top of it. Like one of my clients, they have people sign up, like they'll like for services, and these this the way the organization works. This is a constant stream, right, of people coming in and getting and then coming out because they age in and
Yes.
they age out, and so it's like, and you're doing that manually,
Yeah.
and it's draining,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be manual. And it takes that one person in the organization to say, okay, I'm going to book an afternoon for myself and just think and do some general research on how I can optimize the work that this whole team is doing.
Right.
And that person is, I mean, in my experience, normally the one that steps into that leadership role into the future because they're really thinking about scaling the systems that will enable a team to do their best work. And I always joke that all of our clients eventually get promoted into new and different roles and to work for us chefs a lot too. And we're very happy for them to do that and get to that next step in their career because I mean, a lot of people do the nonprofit work because they're so passionate about the cause. And sometimes people might get frustrated because they're tired or burnt out, they don't see progression in their career. And this is actually one of the ways that people can learn something new about leadership and building the systems that will help their team and their organization scale, and then also implementing change that will influence others in terms of how they do their work. And those are all just such valuable skill sets in understanding the operations, improving the operations, and like introducing new tools that will help the
Yes.
team overall.
I love what you said because a lot of times when I work with people and they get promoted too, it's always so exciting, or they get a new
Yeah.
job. Um,
Yeah.
and one of the things I talk about a lot is we systematize to stabilize, right? So
Mhm.
when these systems are in place, it does a couple of things. It allows for stabilization, right? Because now these are processes, right? And then it allows people to stay in their zone of genius. Like if your job in leadership is relationship building, it allows you to maximize that time and minimize,
Yeah.
because there's always going to be some work, right? And that's okay. But we can minimize that by systematizing these, and in giving your last example of, you know, it is important to the organization that they vet who joins the list, okay? And that has to be done, and that's clogging up my day or my time. It's draining me, and it's keeping me from, right, doing the relational work. So when we systematize that, it's going to get done whether I'm there or not, right? It's going to be systematized, and then allows us to free up. And what my friend calls flow, and I adopted this language from him because he does woodworking, and like we were talking about how when your shop is really orderly and you know where everything is, you stay in flow, right? So I don't have to go looking for this drill bit, or right, or this router bit, because I know where everything is. And I feel like the same way you stay in flow. Hey, that client's coming in, you can boom access that data right away. You're not searching for anything, you're not hustling for anything. You're not showing up frustrated because you had to, like, it's all, we're staying in the flow because everything we need is like right there. And
Mhm.
in this work, I feel like that is so important to have that ease of, because there's so much other things around us that, right, that are stressors. Just
Yeah.
that systemization and the flow of the work makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nature of the work changes. So for the operations manager and engagement manager, that doesn't have to review every single email that comes in. And that takes anywhere from 10 minutes to their day, or if lots of people sign up, maybe an hour of their day just reviewing all these like and researching all these people, they can take those 3 hours a week and do more productive or more high value work for the organization with that.
Yeah.
So even for like technical folks, let's say if you have a reporting manager in your organization or on the team that spends a few days preparing for the quarterly or annual impact reporting, if that person can have data at their fingertips, they can use that time to write more and explain more of the implications of that data and the decision making that data could influence rather than gathering 17 different spreadsheets from 8 different people and checking which version of the spreadsheet is the most updated one and amalgamating all of those things. It just changes how people actually use the time that they have. And I always say no one ever grows up thinking they want to copy and paste data from one spreadsheet to another. So
Right.
this is my way of helping people eliminate that kind of
Yeah.
work.
Like when I asked you what you're most proud of, it wasn't your ability to copy and paste data into a
Oh,
spreadsheet, was
absolutely not.
it? All right. So if you're thinking, if you're and a nonprofit leader right now thinking we could really use some cleanup, right? We could really use some help. Like for, in my I get the sense this isn't really about budget as much as it is about being able to take the time to to like assess things. What can what can we do to improve our workflow even with limited time and resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's lots of resources available online to you. And again, it starts with time. It absolutely starts with time because people need to think through their ideas, think through how they can get the team on board, how they can ask the right questions about the systems. So if that's an area where people need support, we actually do have a data health checker where you take a couple minutes to enter in the data. It gives you a lot of the planning. It takes a lot of the planning for you because we basically give you that step by step of how you can approach it with your team. And that's like a very self-serve route to go. And lots of people have friends and colleagues and other operations managers or other exec directors that they can reach out to in their network to just talk about systems. Like, even if in the next coffee chat, they can bring up systems and operations with that friend or that colleague or that partner, that's something I think also contributes because just through the grapevine, hearing what other people are doing, what they're struggling with is going to be really helpful. And then when you're at that step where you are ready to spend the dollars or go apply for a grant where it can help you to build systems, um, sometimes we get lots of clients who have applied for a grant come to us. Then we can talk about how it is that we might be able to help you or how another expert might be able to help you. And coming back to time, I think there's a balance that people have to decide for themselves. If they are the executive director in an organization or if they are the program manager in an organization, do they want to do the programmatic work or do they want to spend some evenings and weekends and some regular work hours on implementing the systems? So I think that thinking piece of figuring out, okay, what needs to be done and what needs to be changed absolutely needs to at least get started with the individual and possibly with the team as well. But the actual implementation, there's a decision to be made around do we want to implement it in-house with internal resources, which are really good at the programming or really good at the uh, volunteer engagement that that person is already doing, or do we want to bring in external groups? And that could be us at Claribase, that could be another software vendor, that could be something that's totally different. But I think in general, I want to caution people against like spending too much time doing the actual implementation.
Okay, right, right. Um, it could well, they can get overwhelming. They can get you can get distracted. All of the things that, and then maybe
Yeah.
never really get it implemented. And the thing about it is, in any time we systematize, it does take some energy up front, right? And
Yes.
then once you get over that hump, then it's all right. Like, I tell people once you get that, welcome sequence set up, then it's just working for you,
Yes.
right? And it's just so it does take some effort and intention in the beginning. And like I just had a call to somebody and they're talking about we are outgrowing our ability, like we are outgrowing our ability to um, we have more people to care for than we have money, right? And
Mhm.
anytime we want to scale, right, that's scaling you're talking about, and people becoming very valuable inside their organizations because they figured out a way to scale,
Mhm.
right? By systematizing and stabilizing some of the system right inside, right, the processes inside the organization. That is what creates growth
Yes.
more than I feel like more than anything else, because it frees people up again to do the real work, to
Yeah.
have the quality conversations, like not to just gather the data but analyze it and make a really killer annual report. You know what I'm saying? Because you're
Yeah.
the next level now. You're not just creating, you're not just pulling the data,
Mhm.
you're taking the time to assess it, make decisions from it, instead of just like it's just a hunt, right, the whole time.
Yeah, and it's instead of really hunting for that data from one place to the next and trying to figure out what's right, you can really operationalize a lot of the day-to-day work. And then once you're in that operational layer, then you can really be strategic as the next step in terms of, okay, well, now we all have a little more time to actually dedicate it to the planning. One of our other clients, when they started working with us, they said this was a grant giving organization. They were a government agency that gave grants. They have lots of different multi-million dollar programs that happen every year. And when we started working together, they would have these hour and a half long calls every single week with 20 people, just giving updates, and then everyone's pulling up their individual spreadsheets. And then once they got everything inside of Airtable, that meeting became 45 minutes, and then they only talked about issues. There were just
Right.
no updates whatsoever. They only talked about, okay, these are the issues that we want to talk about, which grant program doesn't have enough applications, which grant program has too many applications. Do we reallocate in some ways? Do we need to promote one program more versus another? Like there were just way more decisions and issues being solved in that meeting that also became shorter.
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, so much more time spent on strategy, forward thinking, right? Goal centered instead of
Yeah,
the day-to-day work.
yeah.
Okay, you mentioned your three free 3-minute data health check. And so I will have the link in the show notes for anybody who wants to take that. That seems like a very good tool you could try. And if people are interested in connecting with you and Clarabase, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Cherry Young, and Clary Base also has a website. Our website is claribase.com, CLARIBASE.com.
And so, how do you work really quickly? Just how do you work with organizations? You mentioned it earlier, but like sometimes you just go in and get them set up and you come out. Do you like, are there people that you have more long term where you're working with them more side by side? What does that look like?
Yeah, so in some cases, our organizations have smaller budgets, so we might just do a short advisory engagement with them. That could be 5, 10, 20 hours typically. And once we're done, then we're out and they can reach out to us maybe 6 months or a year later if they need some extra help. The other type of project is really implementing the actual project for the client. So then we're doing discovery, we're doing the implementation, we're doing the support after the project. But like I said, Airtable is really easy to use and very flexible as a tool. So a lot of our clients will learn how to use the tool as we're building it. So they get really familiar and comfortable and confident in the system that when we hand it off to them, they can do a lot of the support on their own. And we're still available to them, but we don't expect them to reach out to us with, help me invite a new person of our
Right,
team
right. The
to our
support, right,
system.
like right.
They know how to do that.
They know how to do all that. They're really managing it themselves.
Yeah.
This is great. I hope this inspires people to think about, systematizing and creating, thinking about the workflow and being in that flow state, right?
Mhm.
However you get there, it's a good place to be. Chery, thanks so much for chatting with me today. This has been lovely. And please go visit. We'll put the link in the show notes, and you can take your 3 minute data health check and see how you're doing. And if you want to connect with Chery, I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you. Thanks again.
Thank you, Marianne.
All right, and that is it for this episode of the Influential Nonprofit. Go systematize to stabilize, and reach out to Chery if you want, and we'll see you next time.